Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Powerhouse Podcast. I am absolutely thrilled as I have another powerhouse joining me in the ring today to go a few rounds and get into some really rich, juicy conversation around leadership and probably a whole lot of other things as well. Before we jump in, let me just say hello and welcome to Eva Medilek. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Candy. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, so excited and honored to have you on the show. And for those of you that obviously don't know, Eva and I know each other as we play together in a group, Evolutionary Business Council, and just have had such an opportunity to get to know her a little bit better, and really looking forward for you to see all the greatness and insight and amazing awesomeness that she brings to the work that she does. So let me tell you a little bit about Eva. She is a relationship style success coach and a graduate of Ascension Leadership Academy. She has coached both men and women in the areas of personal development and leadership. As a relationship style success coach, she has helped highly driven individuals restore intimacy in their relationships by using that drive to foster vulnerability and connection. Mm-hmm. Even if firsthand how to drive personality type can leave you feeling disappointed, that driven personality type, those extreme type A personalities. Some of you know who you are. Leave you feeling disappointed, frustrated, resentful in your personal relationships. She uses her personal experiences along with her leadership and transformational training to teach you how to communicate in a way that fosters intimacy and connection in your relationships. You don't have to choose between being successful in life or being successful in relationships. I love that, because as somebody who has also personally struggled being a highly driven type of personality, sometimes it's been at the cost of the relationships in my life. So I'm so excited to dig into this. Learning how your relationship style can be used to create connection and intimacy is truly key. And she believes that passion, connection, and intimacy can be restored to relationships, and it can be fun. For some of you are like, oh no, here we go. We're having a lot of fun, I assure you. So Eva, welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here with you, Candy. And yes, we do play in the Evolutionary Business Council together, which is an extremely generous, heart-centered group, and I love that that's how we met.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So, which leads me to my first question, right? I think there's this, because I can already feel perhaps some resistance from people when they hear the word intimacy. They're like, oh great, they're going to talk about the woo-woo space, or they're going to talk about that intimate relationship space that's about sex or love or this. And I really want to explore a little bit what intimacy means beyond just that maybe myopic space that people want to put in that box, and what intimacy means in all of your relationships and why that's so powerful.
Well, you know, I have this notion of intimacy as being creating a safe space. Not only creating space to be authentic and vulnerable in relationship, but making it feel safe, which means no shooting on yourselves, no judgment, no expectations, just loving what is and feeling safe to being loved for who you are, and also extending that to whoever you're in relationship with. I mean, we have these experiences with our parents, our children, our siblings. It's not just romantic relationships, so to speak, but how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if people feel safe sharing with you, those are intimate moments.
Absolutely. And I love that definition. And I'm curious, when you talk about safety, when you talk about personal safety as you're building those relationships, what constitutes a safe space in a relationship, and how does one start to create safety for themselves and actually invite that intimacy in?
Well, I like to call it coming from a place of generosity and being generous in your listening, and not listening to respond, not listening to even help or fix. Like, men tend to want to fix things when they listen. And some of us women who think we know it all as well want to fix. And sometimes it's good to ask when you're in conversation with someone, or someone says, I want to talk to you, or I need to talk to you, to just be open to receive and to listen, and ask, do you want me to listen to you, to respond? Do you want my advice? Like, how can I support you? Like, what do you need from me? And that to me is being generous. And that's creating the space for the other person to just share, not knowing that they're going to hear you say, well, that's wrong. I wouldn't do it that way. Or this is what you should be. I call it shoulding on people. And just letting them feel safe to share. And so that's what I mean by creating that space, is to be generous in your listening.
And I think there's so much opportunity in that, right? To be generous for listening. And I love that you say, the shoulding all over yourself. When we talk about destroy the noise, it's the S in the noise is the shoulding all over yourself. It's the things that you think you should be doing versus giving yourself that permission. Because I'm curious, as you're talking about, creating this space of safety and why that's so important. What's the detriment or what's the risk if you don't create that safety for yourself, or if you don't have those environments where you are establishing real intimacy in the connections, in your relationship? What's the risk or what's the detriment to you, to how you show up, and to how you might be affecting or influencing others?
Well, first of all, most of us, and I would say all of us, just want to feel seen and heard. And so unless you're creating a space for whoever you're in relationship with to feel actually seen and heard by you, you risk actually destroying that connection, destroying those intimate moments, and creating a space that's unsafe and mistrustful. And so you don't feel that, I talk to you all the time, but you never really hear what I'm saying, is because, I may be listening, just waiting to respond or to share my story or to talk about myself. And there's a reason why we have 2 of these and 1 of these. They're to be used in that order. Listen twice as much as you speak. And so what happens is, if you're not feeling heard and your communication is not landing, then there's that mistrust, that why should I speak to you? Like, you're not really hearing me. And all we really need is validation. And that creates some defensiveness. And I think that's where a lot of anger can come up in relationship, because we don't feel heard, we don't feel seen. And so the defenses are up and we're defending what I said, and then you're coming back, and then it gets a little bit of battle. So I think increased conflict in discussion and communication happens if you don't create a safe space to communicate. So that's just been my experience. When you don't really even check in, when you are the one speaking, like, it's so simple to say, what did you hear me say?
It's that asking for clarification, right? Or not making assumptions. It always amazes me, especially when you talk about more romantic or personal relationships, when I'll hear a couple say, well, I just know he's going to say that. And I'll say, how do you know that? They're like, because the last time I asked him, he said that. And I usually respond and say, okay, so is it possible that you've grown at all since the last time you had that conversation 3 years ago? And they're like, sure. And I'm like, is it possible perhaps that maybe he has too? And they're like, oh, I go, do you think that might change the outcome of the conversation? And we've all had those moments where somebody's asked you something in a moment that if they would have waited 30 minutes, you would have responded in a very different way, because you would have been in a very different presence and context. And, oftentimes we respond or react in that space where we haven't checked in with ourselves first. So I love that you talk about how simple it is to ask, because I'm curious, in the work that you do, what are some of the common ways people break intimacy or break connection or break that trust that maybe they don't even know they're creating either unsafe environments or they're shutting someone down so that they don't be seen and heard? What are some of maybe the little things?
Little things we can do I like to compare it to spring is coming. We're going to till the soil so that whatever we plant will be well received and can take root. The same thing goes in your communication and your relationships. You want to set the stage so that you're heard, and that's your responsibility. And one of the things that I find that I need to coach my clients a lot on is the acknowledgement piece. To come at someone with acknowledging what's right, starting the conversation off. And I don't want to be all woo-woo positive, but
go ahead.
Yeah. But, well, I like to say, talk about what's working first. Like, I love how you make me feel, or how I feel when you do this. Like when you load the dishwasher for me, I feel so taken care of, and like you're really trying to lift my burden from what I'm doing in the household. However, it would actually make me, let's see how I can put it, to take that a step further. If you can just pick up your clothes off the floor and put them, instead of coming out and saying, look, you never pick up your clothes off the floor. I've asked you many a times, like, what kind of slob are you? But start with the acknowledgement, to holding somebody high, to show appreciation for this person in your life. And like, if you start from that loving space and that place, how could you not want to receive and just make sure your communication lands? But if you immediately someone with what's not working and what's wrong and what they're doing wrong and making them wrong, they're automatically going to get defensive. But if you're coming at a place of love and appreciation for everything that they do that's right. However, this one little thing I really need your support in. Can you hang up your coat? Like whatever that looks like.
Right.
Then you have a better tilled soil to have that request be honored, because it really makes me feel a certain type of way when you do this. I feel loved, I feel cherished, I feel heard, that I'm not a nag or repeating myself. And it seems, I don't know, could seem silly at first to try it that way, but I have to tell you that has worked magic in my relationships and some of the relationships of the people that I get to serve in my coaching. And it's really just simple. It takes practice. It's uncomfortable at first. You're like, God, do I have to do this? Like, he knows I love him. You're like, why do I have to say it all the time? But at the end of the day, we all want to feel loved and appreciated.
Well, and we call that framing the positive, because we talk about how to have those difficult conversations, right? And before you start with the I've noticed, I've observed, I feel, whatever, it is always to find the win-win in the situation. That's you, that person, and everyone that might be included, but it's that positive space to say, I see you, I honor you, I love you, and
yes,
help in this space. The other thing that I've noticed, and I love that you were really adamant about even some of that language, is two of the things I have found that really are blocks. So even if you were to frame the positive and then you drop into either the you, instead of, okay, I'm feeling this way, I need some support, I would like, but you, the minute you say that, there's a defensive space, right? Punch. And you always, anytime people are using those always qualifiers, because all it takes is someone to go, well, I took it out last week, right? And then now you've got this almost pissing match between the two people, instead of a space where they're being open and heard. And so I love that, because the one thing that I really, really stood out for me in what you said was that space to honor the other person. Because I do think sometimes we take it for granted when we say, well, he knows I love him. Because we all have our self-doubt. We all have our unworthiness days. We all have the noise and the monkey mind and the stuff that's going on that sometimes we assume they know, but actually they might not. And when we don't take that time to say what you just said, to honor them, I think there's so much power in that. So talk more about honoring someone.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much power in feeling that you matter and that you make a difference and that somebody's noticing all of the little things that you do. I mean, I have this joke with my husband, like whenever he travels, I really miss him on Tuesday nights because that's garbage night. And I just love the fact that I have him in my house to really gather up all the trash and do all the separating and do that. And I appreciate him for that every single time because it's something I really don't enjoy doing, and just knowing that he's okay with doing that, and it makes me feel cherished and taken care of. And that's where our power lies, is how we respond. I always like to say you have S plus R equals R. You have the situation, you have your response plus your response equal the result. And so the power lies in that middle R, your ability to respond, not react. Because react is kind of like a knee jerk and it gets you defensive. But just to really intentionally respond to whatever situation is presented to you gives you a lot of influence over the outcome of the situation. And I find that hugely powerful in not only honoring your spouse or your partner or your mom or your dad or your kids and whatever it is that the situation calls for, because it really does, at the end of the day, we all want to feel validated. It's just really that simple. And a lot of the conflict that comes up in our lives and our relationships is usually our reaction to not feeling validated, to not feeling that we matter and that we're important or that we're heard. And it's all about the other person. But when you've got two people in relationship, both fighting to appreciate each other, it's pretty cool. And I've seen the evolution in my own relationships about, like, it's almost like we don't really fight anymore because we know how to come at each other when there is a situation that could cause conflict, to really frame the conversation in a way we both can be heard and come to a compromise situation. Or, I can enroll him into my way of view, or he can enroll me. It's all sales, right? It's all an enrollment conversation.
I love that you say that, because I joke that I'm going to do a TED Talk that says dating is nothing more than a sales call.
It is.
I'm like, because I've had people say, Candy, you go into a date like it's a sales call. I'm like, it is. And I'm looking to see if there's a win-win situation and if this is someone I want to create a partnership with.
Yeah.
So yes, there's some different nuances, but the strategies and the approach is exactly the same.
Yeah,
and
totally.
You might be more successful in some of your relationships if you actually understood that, because I think it's very much a sales conversation, right?
It is. I like to call them enrollment calls. I am enrolling you into, and let's see how you can enroll me into you while I'm enrolling you into me. So it is
influence, right? It's influence.
It is. It is. You're so on point about that. And so, yes, I always believe in the acknowledgement and the appreciation, even if you have nothing to say, even if you don't, just say it. I mean, everybody loves love bombs to be dropped on them. Mm-hmm. Like whatever it is, cute butt, I love, that haircut, and it just makes for, and that's the fun I love to put back into relationships. It's just infusing those little nuggets of fun throughout the day with each other. When you're in a romantic relationship, you wouldn't do that with a colleague or your brother or sister, but just really being in a space to have playful fun, but make it about appreciating, and you can have fun and appreciation. It always doesn't have to feel like a chore.
Well, and I think there's a different way to have fun in some of those non-personal relationships.
Yeah.
They do. I think there's so much, we get so serious about everything in our life, especially, as you talk about working with those highly driven, I don't know anything about those kind of people, type A plus personalities that are, killing it, winding and grinding, burning and churning, and sometimes at the exhaust of not only all the relationships, but even the relationship themselves. Because I would imagine that some of what you teach is not only how people are communicating and listening to others, but also how they're communicating and listening to themselves. Because that space of love starts with us, right? We have to be in a place to be able to receive love and know love and feel love before we can expect someone else to show up with us in that space.
Yeah, and that's where generosity comes in, because a huge part of being generous in all of your communication is also learning to how to receive. Mm-hmm. And I like to say, one of the feedback that landed for me, I love for people to be able to know how to give and receive feedback as well. But feedback that landed for me with a coach that I had a few years ago is, she's like, you are so hard on yourself, which in turn makes you hard on everyone else.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, and it was like, arrow to the heart, but she got it. And as soon as I learned to forgive myself and to create space for myself, for me to grow and stumble along the way and not have everything perfect and just right, and to be able to relax and have more fun in relationship with me, it spilled over into everybody else in my family.
Well, it's
And in
funny,
all
I
my
had a
relationships.
teacher that said about the same thing once. She goes, Candy, your bar is so high. I said, yeah. And she goes, which makes everyone around you killing themselves to make their bar that high too. I'm like, oh, I don't want anyone to like have to like just put what you are demonstrating and modeling and what people see because they want to emulate. You are a natural leader. You do these things. She goes, they watch what you do for yourself. And even though you're like, oh, I want you guys to go home early, go take some rest, they won't do it because they watch how you're tearing yourself apart. They start to learn those same. And that was the same kind of sucker punch. Like,
yeah, like,
oh, I don't ever want someone to treat themselves the way I treat myself. I don't want them to be this hard on themselves. I get it's a sickness. I don't want them to do this.
Yeah.
And it was such a wake-up call to go, whether or not you believe it, and I teach my clients this, you are modeling for someone. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't have children, you don't have nieces, nephews, there is someone in your life. Mm-hmm. I don't care if it's your dog. There is someone in your life who is wanting to be like you, who sees you as a hero or a leader or a model or something. And what are you teaching them? And that's a big way that I've, especially women, had to help them get out of that space of, but it's selfish to take care of me. It's selfish to love me. And I'm like, it's actually selfish when you don't. Because what are you teaching your children about self-care and self-love and what's possible for them? And as soon as you put it in that space for them, you can feel that sucker punch where they're like, okay, you're right. Even if I can't do it for me, I need to do it for them.
Yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
You cannot. That's why we call it self-full, right?
Yeah.
People get in the space around being selfish, which is, let's do this in spite of people, no regards to people, and because it's all about me. Or you can do that space of being self-full, which says, I'm doing this to serve. Yeah. That's what you're talking about, right? It's that space to say, here, I got me first, and then I can pour that out into
exactly.
Else,
exactly. Right? That's why I think it's so powerful when you hire a coach that can help you see what you can't see. And that's all. It's like, what's the story behind the story? What's underneath? What can this person show me? Especially when you think you've done the work, you've read the books, I know. And that creates right and righteousness. And then you're not able to grow. And so, I hire different coaches throughout the year for myself. And these coaches see so much in me that I would have never seen had I not had their eyes on me. I was working with a woman 2 days ago who was kind of in that I know space. I've done this work. I know how to communicate. I'm a therapist. I'm this, I'm that, and the other. And she thought she knew where, we were going back into some of the feelings that were underneath her reactions. Like, what were you feeling to have you react that way when your partner said X, Y, and Z to you? And so when we were doing that deep dive and underneath, and she just was blaming everything on her mom. And so I started to have her look a little bit more at, well, where was your father in all this? And what was he doing? And how did that make you feel? And so what we were able to uncover just in that conversation, and that was like a 2.5 hour deep dive that I offer my clients, we uncovered so much that she never looked at, that her eyes were so wide open because you think that this is it. This is why I'm like this. This is where my problems from, or who to blame. But when you feel that anger, when you feel the disappointment, to peel back and find what is really underneath takes another set of eyes. To really go places you would have never thought to go. As my coach said, you just find that little crack and you weave right into it. And so for us to still have coaches and for us to be able to support other people in and living their best life, as my daughter would say, like we all just want to live our best lives and be happy because life is short and life is now. It's so helpful to have someone kind of walk this journey with you, I like to say.
Well, you
side
can't
by
see the
side.
forest for the trees, right? We never can see. It's always interesting to me, even when I'll work with a few couples here and there, and they were like, I just said that to him. And I'm like, yep, you're the forest for the trees. You're too close to it, right? Sometimes you need that outside neutral, because there's no such thing. I'm really, people always say I need an unbiased opinion. I'm like, everyone's biased. There's no such thing as not biased. So you want a neutral opinion that doesn't have a stake in the game other than you getting to your next level. But I agree with you, because I'm really adamant with my clients that, look, because sometimes I get people that say, Candy, I really need a coach. I'm not sure that you're the person. What would be the first way that I would, I said, the first question you want to ask anyone that you're considering coaching is, do you have your own coach and are you doing your own work? Because if they are not walking that talk to what you said, find those people that are going to look in the gaps, that are going to help you see the story under the story.
Yeah.
And you know as well as I do, us strong personalities, highly driven type, we're really good at spinning the bullshit story that goes round and round. It's like, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
People that get intimidated in that space, shut down and go, okay, you got it. I need somebody that calls my BS in that space.
Oh my God, it's so wonderful.
My default when I'm freaking out, my vulnerability is I tell people that are like, Candy, you got it all figured out. I'm like, I'm a duck. I've just gotten really good at on the surface looking like I've got it. And underneath, I'm flailing. The legs are going a mile a minute. And when I'm most vulnerable is when I weave the biggest bunch of circular BS, whatever, that just sounds like a lot of good words all put together. And it comes out strong and loud. You're like, oh. I'm like, that's exactly when I need a coach to swoop in and be like, okay, time out, Miss Thing. Let's talk about what I just heard, what I'm watching, and let's get into the underbelly of what's really going on.
Yeah, it was funny. I was just on a Zoom call with my coach before I got on with you. And, and she decided to go down memory lane with me. Like, I remember when we first started working together and you were, because I would come, I was like, I'm great. How are you? I'm like, she's like, no, how are you really?
Right. And I mean, because it's such a default. It is such a protective default, badass, whatever you would call it. I don't want people to think I don't, and then somebody has the right way to get into the crack. Yeah. Just twist it open.
Yeah. Just get all up in there.
Right. And so, I love working with those kind of clients. Like,
yeah. Oh my God.
Those people that are, I always say they're Superman and Clark Kent, or Wonder Woman and Diana Prince, right?
Yeah.
So Superman and Wonder Woman, they know how to be like a powerhouse. And they're the ones carrying kryptonite or something around with them that's making it heavy, making it hard. They're living really detached and not connected. And then there's those that are like, I know it's in there. I know it's somewhere. Somebody going to give me permission to bust it free. And I don't know, there's something about those two that when you can get in there and help them. I love that you say that. See the story inside the story. Yeah. The real underbelly. Yeah. That's where the magic happens.
That's where the magic is at, because I just remember working with this woman. She goes, well, it's like, how did you feel when he said that? Well, I said this and that and the other. And when you want to get back up, no. I know what you said. What were you feeling that maybe had you say that? What was really, and so when you're in what I love to call effective communication, especially with your partner, one of the keys is really being honest about what's really going on. Why are you mad? Why are you angry? Why are you disappointed? What is the feeling? And when you can get to a space where you can share that feeling with your partner, you're more likely to have your communication land and somebody to see a different side. Like, when you say that to me, it has me remember when this happened in my life and I felt like this as a child, and that brings that up for me. Right. But you've got to find it first, and you've got to recognize where that's coming from, and then to be able to have the space to share it and not be judged. I mean, I was one of the most judgmental people, I was going to say something else, out there. like, oh, come on, God, you haven't gotten over that yet. But you know what? People just need to feel that their emotions and their hurts are not judged. And they can feel, let's going back to that, creating that safe space for you to share, like, what is the hurt that's underneath the anger? People get angry as a reaction to pain.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that, because one of the things I've worked with a lot of clients on is I said, you've got to get to a place where you can be vulnerable to say the real emotion, not I feel pissed, which is a safe emotion,
Yes.
and a socially accepted emotion. People get, because I guarantee your pissed isn't pissed. Your pissed is, I'm scared and feeling vulnerable and naked and wide open, and I feel like someone just took advantage of me.
Yeah.
It's not, but what we do is we qualify it in that space that's socially accepted, or it makes us look like we're tougher, or it's whatever. So we say phrases that I was this, I was that, and we're not getting into the root of the real emotion. Again, to your point, it's that story inside the story. Because I find so many people will say, well, I'm pissed, I'm this. And I'm like, that's not what your body language is telling me. Because I'm seeing the tears, and I'm seeing the shoulders, and I'm seeing, because if you were really pissed, and it was an anger thing, your body would be demonstrating very different visceral reactions than what's happening right now. So what's that real feeling? And most of the time it's that I feel really judged, or I feel really vulnerable, or I feel really, incompetent, whatever it might be. But it's I feel ashamed. That's a big one, right? I feel shame.
Yeah, a lot of it, like Brene Brown says a lot.
I just did a whole weekend with her this weekend, girl. And I need to talk to you about that offline, because I'm going to do another one in June, and I'm bringing some of my peers. Holy cow. We did weird work with some of her people on Daring Greatly Rising Strong. Whole side conversation, but
oh yes. We'll talk about that for sure.
At a horse ranch, and like healing with horses, and was insanity.
Beautiful. No, I love her work, and I love just how real she is.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's when, this pretending that you're perfect and everything is all right, and you're expecting other people to be perfect, just doesn't work, because people are not going to be attracted to you in any way, shape, or form unless they know the real you, unless you show that side of you that, I'm screwed up, but you can love me anyway.
We call that hashtag just a duck.
Just a duck.
Hashtag just a duck.
And my daughter always says something to me, you're my mommy, you're supposed to be perfect. I'm like, no, your mommy's crazy. Yeah, and it's okay.
I'm this, right? Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. And you need to see that. Stop having me on a pedestal. They make me because that's kind of the behavior they saw me model when they were younger, before I was woke.
That's so powerful, because it's true. It's so true.
Before I was woke. Before I was woke. But there's one, like, I teach the 5 distinct relationship style impressions that actually can damage our adult relationships to today, and that we have today. And I created an acronym with the word style. And so one of those style impressions I call the yo-yo style. Ooh. And because we have high expectations. And because of our expectations being so high, when our partner, our spouse, our significant other, our children, or whatever, don't meet those expectations, we feel really disappointed. But the disappointment shows up as anger. And we can't recognize it as that it's truly a disappointment, and we get angry that we were let down.
Right.
And it's something that I think a lot of the styles have a little bit of that trait in them, because we are coming into a lot of relationships with some place to get, and with expectations, and literally shoulding all over ourselves. You should do this, you should do that. And so one of the things I love to have my clients look into is be curious about the story behind the story when you're having a conversation. Like, why are they saying this? Why are they reacting like this? What behavior was modeled for them that they are comfortably in misery around, because a lot of people are comfortable in misery because that's what they knew as a child, or that was in their household. I say misery, but it can be conflict, it can be arguing, it could be fighting, it could be avoiding emotions, all kinds of things. Unfortunately, that's their comfort zone. They know it's not right, but it is a space of comfort because that was modeled for them in their younger years, and that's all they've known. And so just really managing our expectations and loving what is really, really crucial when you're having any type of connection or intimacy and conversation. Is really stop shitting on yourselves, I like to say.
Well, that's in my acronym noise, the S is.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, I love how you extend the curiosity out to be curious about why other people might be doing things and where that's coming from for them. Because I really do a lot of work with people around their own personal triggers. I'm like, look, if a trigger's showing up for you, you have three choices, right? You can become victim to the trigger and say, I don't want to deal with it, it's blah, 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 and you're still in that victim space. Or you can get really curious around, okay, I noticed this trigger keeps showing up. Where's that coming from for me? Or you can get really clear in your convictions to say, no, I really know this is what I believe. And then it's like the water off the duck's back, right? And I love that you talk about extending that curiosity to other people as well. It's not just about your triggers. It's about really being mindful and compassionate around other people's triggers. Because, we don't, and to go back to Brene Brown, she teaches that space of, if you imagine that people are coming from the best place they can with what they have. And it's not about, do you accept that belief? How does that change things if you acknowledge that you don't know what's going on for people? And you don't know what caused this. Does that change the way you might show up compassionately, vulnerably, openly with people? And I think that's so powerful, right? We get so caught up in they need to do this. It's that polarization of you, they, and not oftentimes, 99.9% of the times, it's a mirror being held up on work that you get for yourself. And I had a friend of mine in corporate that used to say, you spot it, you got it.
I love that.
You're like, oh, how am I doing with that? And that's the question you always have to ask first. How am I doing with that before I get so righteous to go fix somebody else who's disappointed me, who's done something that's violated an expectation I set out? Because wait, I'm not meeting that expectation either, and I know that, and that's the shame piece that starts to come in that makes it an ugly, very heavy, conflicted situation.
Yeah, that's so powerful the way you said that, because it just reminded me, I'll share this quick story about a conversation I was having with my husband, and I was having some doubts about a program that I wanted to launch. And he said something to me, oh, people will never buy that from you. And it was just like a stab in the heart. And I made up all of these stories about, like, why doesn't he ever believe me? I built businesses before, when I built our real estate investment company, and I did this, and he doesn't believe in me, and how dare he say that? And so I am very careful of the community that I surround myself will not buy my bullshit, I will not be in relationship with anyone who entertains any pity party that I decide I need to throw for myself that day. Yeah. And so one of my coaches that I work side by side with said something to me. He's like, you know what? He's reflecting a fear that you have of your program not being successful. And he's wanting to protect you from the hurt. And I'm like, duh. And so when I got to share this with my husband, the first thing I said to him was, I know that you love me and that it's not your intention to hurt me or say anything mean to hurt me. However, when you said this to me, the story I made up about it was that you didn't believe in me and that, you just really didn't think that anybody would be enrolled in this program that I'm launching. But I know you were coming from a place of saying that so that I wouldn't feel hurt and disappointment in case the launch didn't work out. I know that, and I acknowledge you for that, and I love you for that. But I needed to share with you the story that I was making up about that. And he was like, oh my God, of course, I just love you, and I didn't want you to feel like, he was just like, he had no idea I was spinning out of control in my own little head. But because I surround myself in a community that will not let me fall victim to the stories that I make up in my own head about what's going on, and really invite me to see, to see, like, most of the people we are in relationship do not have the intention to hurt us.
No. Most people in general don't wake up going, I want to be a jerk today, and I want to see how many people I can, like, shut down.
One or two people.
I was going to say, I know I've had some in my life. I have a clinical narcissist who was but I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about the masochist and the narcissist.
But when you start to peel back people's intention, you get to have more openness, compassion, and curiosity, and just say, look, I know that wasn't your intention. However, this is how it landed for me. And so that's a responsibility for you to be honest about how that communication landed. And the next time they want to tell you something like that, maybe they'll say it in a different way so it doesn't hit you like a ton of bricks and land that way, because we're responsible for how our communication.
And I love that you keep saying that, because it is. We are responsible for how we choose to respond or react.
Yes.
We are, and I tell people, you are responsible for everything, even if it's only how you choose to react. And that space of, and I think it's so critical that most people will say, I've got a lot of people that love and support me. And then they'll tell me, oh, this person says yes, or this person's agreeing with me on everything. And my comment usually is, are you sure you have people loving and supporting you? Because people that agree with you on every turn are not supporting you. They're not loving you full out. They're loving you at a level. And if you've got all yes people in your inner circle, it's time to do some housekeeping, because you need some BS detectors and people that are going to call you when you're out of integrity, call you when you're in your story, call you. I mean, one of my best friends, people do not understand how we're friends. It's not like we argue and debate more than anything, but we are truth tellers for each other, and we do not allow each other to show up out of integrity.
Yeah.
And if it means that we get off the phone going, and 3 days later going, good. Sometimes it really makes me crazy when you're right. That's what we do, right? Because you surround yourself with people that are going to help you be a better version of yourself.
That's funny. My daughter says it to me all the time. Oh, I just hate it when you're right.
I know, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it is what it is.
I'm always right, except when I'm wrong.
Exactly. So, Eva, I could talk to you all day. I just adore you, my friend. And we'll have you back on the show. But in the meantime, we're getting to my team's going to be like, seriously, Candy, wrap this up. How can people reach out to you? How can people have more conversations around how relationships are showing up for them, how they're showing up for their relationships? What does intimacy really look like? What does it mean? How do they create that safety, or anything else they want to connect with you on? What's the best way for them to reach you?
They can email me directly, and it's so simple. My name is there. It's just eva@evamedilek.com.
Awesome. And
I love talking. Yeah, I love talking to people, and I answer all of my emails personally. You're not going to be sent off to a VA or an assistant who says, Eva will get back to you when she has time. I always respond to people within 24 hours. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love that. So if you had one thing you would like to leave our audience with, maybe a juicy nugget or a way to bring all of this amazing conversation kind of to that just gem to walk away with, what might that be?
I think the operative word is responsibility. So you are responsible for how your communication lands, and you also are responsible for your response in any situation. So really just be in responsibility, take ownership, and know that that is a powerful place to be, because you can really have a direct effect on the outcome.
Absolutely.
And of the situation. Mm-hmm.
I love that. You all know I love talking about personal responsibility, because as we've always discussed, leadership is a function of how you choose to show up, how you choose to serve others, and how you choose to take personal responsibility inside those two spaces. And all of that starts with you powerfully saying yes to yourself, destroying the noise, including the shoulding all over yourself.
Yes.
So that you can step out and be the leader you were destined to be. Eva, thank you so much.
This is perfect. Thank you.
so honored to have you here. And for all of you listening, thank you again for tuning into the Powerhouse Podcast. We are here because of you. For those of you that haven't subscribed, please do so. We have so many more fabulous powerhouses like Eva that are going to join us, share their beauty, share their wisdom, share their insight, share their gifts, and I do not want you to miss an episode. With that, know that I love you. I'm sending you all heart-to-heart hugs. Go out and make it a phenomenal day. We'll catch up with you next time on the Powerhouse Podcast.